When I was 16, I was taking a dump, as most people are wont to do, and I turned around to admire my handiwork, as a lot of people like to do, and my beautiful, shiny turd was floating in the water, but it was destroyed by the fact that it was floating in a sea of red. And I checked to make sure I hadn't accidentally summoned Satan during my shit, and realized that I have now discovered a crimson river leaking from my pooper. And I hate doctors. I just refuse to see them as much as possible. I think the last time I went to an actual MD was 6 years ago. So when I saw this problem, my response was, cool, I guess I bleed out of my ass now. And I wiped up, went on with my day, continued to have this problem a couple more times, I think, then it went away. Then it reappeared 3 weeks later, and I had this on-again, off-again relationship with my rectal bleeding for about 1.5 years, until I go to I'm at a doctor's appointment, a checkup with my pediatrician. My parents are there. She asks my parents to leave. She says, Avi, is there anything you'd like to talk to me about privately? And I see her reaching for the teen sex pamphlet. And I say, well, I've been bleeding out of my butt. And so she drops the pamphlet, walks over to me and asks, okay, how long has this been happening? And I say, about 1.5 years. And she gives me the look of someone who wonders why the hell you've been hiding a medical problem for 1.5 years from a doctor. And she asks, okay, well, do you want to figure this out right now? And I say, yes, that would be great. So she asked me to lie down on my side and have me pull down my pants. Understandable, I guess you want to examine the area of issue if you're trying to figure out the problem. And then she pulls out this device that looks like a clear plastic dildo with alligator teeth on the end. Like, imagine this mic with teeth right here. And she says, Avi, I'm going to stick this up your butt. And I say, what is? And suddenly I feel a cold sensation in my colon. And I don't know how to describe to you what it feels like to have skin pinched off your colon other than that exact sentence. But it's like getting slashed on the inside and then having to live with the fact that that happened. So she pulls it out, I pull up my pants real quickly, feeling very, very different at this point. And I sit up and she drops the, let's call it dildo teeth machine, into a plastic bag and says, in a couple days, we'll find the results for this, I'll send it to the lab, and I'll give you a call. And I'm like, okay. So I walk out of the room, my parents are there, and they ask, what did she talk to you about? And I say nothing, and we move along with our day. 2 days later, she gives us a call, and my dad answers the phone. She mentions it's about me, so he has me come to the phone and my mom come to the phone. And she says, well, we couldn't find any issues, so I'd like to schedule you for a colonoscopy. Now remember, my parents didn't know what had happened in the pediatrician's office, so this is the first they're hearing about this situation. They look at me and they're like, what? Why are you getting a colonoscopy? So I have to explain this entire situation to them. Fine, schedule the colonoscopy. The thing about colonoscopies, as you know, they're typically a procedure reserved for men over the age of 55 to determine if they have prostate cancer. Now, I was 17 at the time, so one, I was pretty upset that I had to do a procedure typically reserved for senior citizens, but two, I was also really excited to be an overachiever and be mature for my age, have evidence that I was mature for my age. So it's conflicted, but we scheduled the colonoscopy. The thing they don't tell you about colonoscopies, they have these PSAs, they say everyone should get one, check for colon cancer, check for prostate cancer. What they don't tell you is what you have to do in the week before your colonoscopy. See, about 4 days before the colonoscopy, you have to stop eating solid food completely to clear out your intestines. And 2 days before the colonoscopy, you have to stop drinking liquids that have red color, so no tomato juice, no red Gatorade, because while medical science has figured out how to separate conjoined twins, we have not been able to determine the difference between red Gatorade and human blood. Fine, I dealt with that, but the day before the colonoscopy, I had to get this jug, 4-gallon jug of a laxative from the pharmacy, and for some ungodly reason, they flavor it with lemon flavoring, and they call it Lemlax, because they want to give you some kind name for this thing you have to drink, and you have to drink that entire thing in 24 hours the day before your colonoscopy. Most people don't drink 4 gallons of liquid in a day ever, so I had to have that experience, and at this point I'm only like pooping liquid because I've only had liquid for the last 3 days. But taking this laxative, I learned what it meant to shit air. And you think, oh, that's farting, that's everyone's experience. No, it is like having a compressed shit made of air, and when you sit on the toilet, you are shooting out a jet stream of air out of your ass. And I'm miserable, I'm like taking the pain, so my dad comes up and he's like, Avi, it's okay, I've been through this too, I understand. Which is like the one thing you want to have in common with your aging fathers, that you both had a camera stuck up your rectum. And I make it through the day and I'm like, thank God. Next day, just can't drink anything, eat anything. I go to the operating room. For some reason, I invited both my girlfriend and my mom because I thought it would be a bonding experience for them. And they take me into the operating room. They fill me with a bunch of tubes, IVs, and all of those things, give me the lowdown of the procedure, and they tell me, okay, Avi, I'm going to take you to the operating room, you're going to count down from 10, and you will be asleep before you hit 0. And I was a kid, so I was like, fuck you, no, I'm going to make it to 0, no matter what you think. So I count 10, 9, 8, and then I wake up in a completely different room. And I look up, I see the nurse above me, and I'm like, when are we gonna do the colonoscopy? And she's like, we did it, and you've been asleep for an hour and a half, which is actually a lot longer than most people. And I was like, yes, I wanted something. And I look to my right, I see my girlfriend and my mom just staring at me, and I'm just like very confused in this moment. And you know what? I feel very clean. I just want to say, if you're anybody, is there anybody whoever wants to do a juice cleanse, I highly recommend a colonoscopy, because I've never, ever felt as clean in my system before. They send the results to me a week later, and turns out there was nothing actually inside my colon that was an issue. They're like, it probably is a cut on your ass, and I'm like, cool, I could have known that without having to go through this entire thing. Yeah, and then the kind of button on all of this. The reason I remember this story, about a month and a half ago, my parents had a party, and this doctor that put the clear plastic dildo in my ass was an Indian woman, and for some reason is friends with my mother. So I just saw her a month and a half ago, and my mom was like, please talk to her. And I'm like, no, I refuse. Brought back a lot of bad memories. Thank you.